In this video, we're going to focus on how you can create a model that when we click on it, you can see here now, the pie chart will show us the matching data here. For example, here, this is Monday, you selected Monday, then we close that and I click again on this segment. You can see here now it's Tuesday, we selected Tuesday, and of course you can do far more advanced items in here, but this is just a sample in how you can start working on it. So let's explore how to create these models and connect them with Chart.js. So let's start to explore how to connect the model when clicking on a pie segment in Chart.js. So the first thing what we need is to get our default code. So our default code is here on chartjs3.com getting started, and this link is also in the description box. Scroll down here and then grab this chunk of code here. Copy all of this, and if you want to understand what this does, make sure you watch this video, which explains it all. I'm going to just paste that in there, and then I'll cut out this and replace the old title with the new one. Save that, refresh. There we are. So now we have a bar chart, but I want a pie chart. So I'm going to convert this into a pie chart. So I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to say our type will be pie. And then if we do that, I want to remove the scales because we don't have any scales, because a pie chart doesn't contain any scales. So the next thing what I want to do is I want to make sure that the width will be in proportion because it will be a square shape. There you are. So this looks nice, and what I want to do eventually is when we click on a certain item here, it should open up a model and then we are able to close the model. So to do that, and that's also a nice exercise, is to create a model by our own. So what I'm going to do here now is just quickly create something. So just here below, I'm going to, oh sorry, not here, just here below, here down, I'm going to create the model, and basically I want to make sure that the model is outside of anything else here because it will be not visible by default. It will be only visible the moment we click on it, and then it will be full screen. So what I want to do here is, well, first of all, let's create here a div, and this div will have an ID name, and we can just call this our model. And then what we can do here, we can say class, and this might be the model background, but it doesn't matter so much because we won't be using the class here much, except for one thing later on where we can put in a hide and in show, but that's later on. So then what I want to do here, I'm going to say here div again, and then this class will be model. This is just the model container. Well, the upper one is not the model container, but it's basically the background and the model itself. Although in this case the background will not be noticeable because it will be, the model will have a full size. However, this item will still be important later on. So what we want to do then afterwards here, well, we can say a div class and just give it here a model header, and the model header will have just some basic information here. Let's say here we can say here a h2, and what we want to do in this h2 here, we're going to say selected segment, and that's later on that once we select a specific item, then we should be able to put in here. And so for example, it will be when we click on this Sunday, it should show here Sunday. So if I click here, it will be Monday. So then I'll put that in there. And then the next thing what I want to, and maybe we can give a class already, I'll just give it a class of label, so that later on we can use that. So next what I want to do here is, well, that will be outside of this div, but it will be in a new div, and this div will be a class of model body. So we have the model body class. And then in here, I'll just make it very simple. I'm just going to make a paragraph, and this paragraph will say, you have selected, and then we just grab this again. This will be later on dynamic based on what we clicked on. And then finally here a div class, and this div class will be a model of footer where we're just going to put in basically the close button. Alright, so now we have this here, and I can just put in here a button. You can say here button, give this an ID of close, so it might be useful for later on. And we can say here on click, well later on we can do an on click, but let's say class here and just give it some design, btn danger, and then here this will be close model, and there we are. So once we have this, if I save this and refresh, you can see here it's just here at the very bottom. So that means that we need to do some CSS on this. So let's start to work on CSS. And what I will do here for the CSS, I'll just go here down and just say here, I guess, what is that? doesn't matter here. I'll just do here slash and then asterisk. That's the one. Slash asterisk. I'll say here model. And then in here, we're going to work on the model, and this is the pi model. So first of all, we're going to say here hashtag, and what will be the ID? That's the model itself, or the model for the pi. And then what I want to do here, this is the first thing. I want, because when we click on it, what we want to do is to make sure that this will be a full screen. So what we need here is basically the full screen option. So I'm going to say here, Z index, because I want to be on the front. And the others by default have a 0 index, so this is a Z index. I'm going to say Z index 1. And next what I want to do here is, well, we can leave this one now. Then I'm going to say here another one, which would be the model, and we say here dot height. This is basically the class of height. And what it will do eventually here is that once we click on the height button, let's say the Z index will be -1. So it will be behind the item here, or behind the screen here, because this here is index 0. So that's very important to remember. All right, so once we have this, then we can save it and let's refresh here. Do we see it? No, not yet, because it's still down here, because it doesn't understand it needs to be in a position here up, which is position absolute. So what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm going to say here, well, what we can do here, I want to pinpoint here. I guess we can grab this one. Maybe that will be even better. So we don't adjust this specific item, but we will only adjust the class itself for the design with the position of absolute. So I guess here for position, not absolute, but fixed. So one is fixed. And then we're going to say here margin. So where we're going to position it, margin 0. And then we're going to do also padding 0. And then we're going to start at the very left top corner there here. And then what we want to do eventually is the full width, so it will cover the entire website or the page. So I'm going to say here left position, or left equals 0, and then we say here top equals 0. Once we do this, we say height. We want to have full height of the screen, so screen height, the viewport height, and we have the width here. That will be the viewport width, 100% as well, because we want the full model. And then what I will do here is, you can say background, or maybe you can say even background color, but we can say here RGBA, but although it doesn't matter too much because we won't be using this at all, because later on we will have a white background color. But if you want a smaller size, then this background color can be essential. So if I save this now, refresh, we can see here now it is here, and you can see the text here already. Click on this close, it doesn't hide yet, or it doesn't do anything. So what we could do here is eventually create the functionality of this button here. Let's do that one already. So we say on click, and then this on click will be basically the functionality. I'm going to say here what will be the function. I guess in this case it would be model close. So we're going to close the model. This is the function. Scroll down here at the bottom. I'm going to say here function model close, and then here very straightforward. All we're going to do here in the model close is we're going to say here model. Oh, what we want to do, of course, then is we need to pinpoint. And what I want to pinpoint here in this case is not the classes here, but I want to just get this ID which covers the entire item here. Why the ID? Because an ID is unique, and it's probably more logical to grab the entire item, because maybe the model background, if you would have another model, you will probably have 2 times the same model class. But the ID must be unique, which would mean that there's only one of this ID existing per web page, or per, well, I guess per page. So I'm going to say here very simple, constant this equals document dot get element by ID, which basically means I'm going to search in our HTML document, which is this document, and search for an element with the ID name of model. And what is an element? Basically any of these items here. In this case, a button. These are elements or syntaxes. So this is the element, but then our ID name will be close. So, oh, sorry, is that close? Hold on, let me double check. I want to do, no, sorry, I want to get the model of this one here. Sorry, my mistake. This model here, or this ID here. However, when we click on this button, eventually we're going to search for an item here with that model and then change that one. So we say here model this, although we don't even click on this because the clicking will be in here. So my bad. So this basically would mean that specific ID we're going to search for. All right. So we have this one here, and then I'll say here the following, because what I want to do here is this. I want to add a class in here, and when I click on the button, this class will be shown, and this class will say height. So I'm going to do this one now. I'm going to say here, and then we're going to say here the following: class list with capital L dot toggle, and what I'm going to toggle is the class name of height. So I don't have to put a dot here. The reason why is because I'm already referring to a class list, which I want to add something. And toggle is very similar to a checkbox. You click on it, it will show, and then when you click again on it, it will remove or hide that check icon. So same here. When we click on the item, it should hide a certain item, or it will add a certain class here. So if I save this now, refresh, click on that. All right. So you can see this works. Although we have still an overlay here. Hide this. Let's go back here. Let's see here. We have this one here. That will be Z index. You click on it, you might notice this, but I guess the background is still things. That's all right. We're going to solve that later on. So if I see here, let's look at it. You can see here the model. The model is here. So remove that. All right. But you can see here, I can click on this, and you can see the text here. This is being in front, and everything else is going to the backward. Anyway, doesn't matter. We can continue on. We can just start to create more. So now we have that working, and what I want to do now is to work on this part here. So we have this height, and maybe what we could do here is eventually I want to give it a opacity. So opacity would mean transparency of 100%. So I'm going to say opacity 0, and here by default the model will be a transparent opacity of 100. So if I save this, refresh, all right, and then click on this, there we are. So basically what I did was, when it's the model here, it will show the background color basically, and here we just convert it into a fully transparent item. Of course, you can see here this is an instant shift. I just click on this, and what we want to do eventually is maybe give it a gradual adjustment, although it will be very limited. So what I'm going to say here, transition, and this transition will say opacity. We're going to pinpoint the opacity, and this opacity will say give it a 0.2 seconds transition effect. Same here. I want to do here again for the transition of opacity related to this one refers basically to here. So because it already has this one, and then the transition to a new opacity when we have a different class, it will then gradually be done. So if I do here one second, you will see it will take too long. Save, refresh. If I click on this, you see here gradually it removes. Beautiful. Only on load, of course, it will not work immediately, but that's acceptable. So this is of course too long, and then we say 0.2 would be better. So we not too intense. You can see it's very quick. Bam, there you are. All right. So this works. We could now even put in here this class. We could add here the class by default. Save that, refresh. All right. So here, of course, we don't have yet the button to activate it, because that should be the item here, the second. Anyway, we have this now. What I want to do is just the final items is to create these items here. Needs to be basically in 3 boxes. One for the top head of the top, otherwise bottom, and then the other one would be the full screen here, whatever is left. So to do that, let's go in here. We're going to focus on our model, or specifically, well, the model itself. I'm going to grab this. Say a class model, and then here, what we're going to do here is the following. We're going to define now how big the model will be. So we're going to say the width will be 100 view of the width, because here we have this transparency. So if you would do here a smaller size, of course, you could do this. We do the height, same. Let me grab the height here. If I do 60 as well, and moving 60% of it, and if I give here a background color, let's do here background color of white. Save that. Refresh. There we are. Close. That's it. Of course, later on we can put it in position. However, I will just do here full width. It'll make it easier. Save that. There we are. Close. All right. So now it starts to work nicely. Let's continue on. So what we have here now is for a model. What I want to do here, of course, is a display. And our display will be flex. And the reason why it's flex is because then we can start to control the elements and it will position it nicely in the center by default. So, and then we can say here, flex flow column. Because I want to have eventually a column design. If I refresh here, you will not see it now, and later on we can start to put it on. And I think if we put here a reduced amount, it should be more organized. Oh, not really. That's all right. So for now, I'll just leave it for now, but we could still push in the center. So now what I want to do here is 2 items. Well, let's look at the button here. We have this button here, and I think we can just give it a proper color here. So I'm going to say here BTN, and then here what BTN will have is the following: border radius. Then I'm going to say 5 pixels. And then next what I want to do here is a padding. Give it a 10 pixel padding for top, bottom, left, and right. Next what I want to do, I want to say the font weight. I want to make it bold. So I say bold. And then here the font color should be white. That is fine. And I'm going to say here, the cursor. We should have here a pointer. And this is by default needed because it's a button. If I save this, or what I mean by button, like that kind of button, this is a button element. If you have a href or an anchor tag, in that case we don't need to do that, but I prefer to use a button if you're going to use a JavaScript functionality, and if you're going to use a link, in that case I will use an href functionality or href element. So that tend to be a better standard. Of course, it's up to you, it doesn't matter so much, it will not really differ much. Anyway, we have this now. Let's save that, but then you can see here this, they have this nice, what do you call it, 3D effect here on the button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the 3D effect by just saying here border equals 0, save that. Alright, but then I need to give this a color, and what will this color be? I'll say here BTN, and then here dot danger. And then in here, I'm going to give it simple a background color. And this background color, I'll just grab here our default color, which is basically this border color here, the red one. I'm just going to grab that. There we are. Copy that. And then I'll just put it in here. There we are. And then here as well is the border color equals that. So now we have this one here. We can save that, refresh, and of course it doesn't work. Why? I need to assign here the danger. All right, that one is here. Did I save that correctly? No. All right, so let me double check here. Border color, or maybe like this. No, hold on, let me double check. All right, sorry, I made a mistake here, horrible mistake, or the only mistake was basically this one here. If I save this, we should have this one done. There we are. Alright, so yeah, CSS should not be so hard, but I guess somehow I just managed to make a mistake here. So now we have these buttons here, we have the button color. What I want to do next is then, of course, to assign the model headers correctly. So if I refresh here, I want this to be full width here from left to right, but this one, or the bottom, the button here will be at the bottom because it's the footer area, and then this body part will be whatever is remaining left. That means that it will get a flexible value. So let's start to do here. So I'm going to say here dot, and I'm going to select here the first part, which is basically assigned for every one of them. I'm going to say here model, and then we say here dash header, comma, dot model dash body, comma, dot model dash footer, meaning that we're going to assign all 3 certain default color items, or basically some syntaxes that will be applied on each of them. So what we're going to do here, well, first of all, what I will say here is the border. Then we say border 1 pixel, and then we can say here hashtag 666, which is the official Chart.js color. Then we say solid. Alright, now we have that one. And then what I want to do is, because I want to control the border position, because if I save this now and refresh, we have this, but you can see here these doubles. I don't want that. So, and the reason why is because we have border top, bottom, left, and right. So what I need to do is only basically top, left, and right to be assigned. So I say here border, maybe we can say, let's see, if I do bottom, then I will say 0, Let's see if that one works. There we are. So this starts to work. Of course, this one here, we can reassign it later on at the specifically one of the model footer. So once we have this, what I want to do here is, well, basically we should have padding as well. Padding, 20 pixels, save. Refresh. Alright, now we have that. Next, what I can do now is to focus now specifically on the next item, which is basically the model of the body. Because this one here must be flexible. We say here model dash body. And what we're going to do in the model dash body, we're going to say here flex. Because basically here, in our model, we have a display flex of column. So now we can say here flex, and this one will be automatic. So we say 1, 1, auto. So this is a shorthand for 3 items, which is one is for the shrink, and the other one is for the growth. So growth of the flex box and shrink of the flex box, and then we have the auto settings. And then if I refresh here, alright, so this works, but I am wondering where is our specific item. Alright, so you can see here we're missing something. So I guess what we're missing here is alright, so if I scroll up here, I guess that's it. I'm going to say here box sizing, and we say here border box, meaning that basically how we calculate the size of the pixels, so the width and the height will be based on the box, including the div or the border and everything within. Basically within this border, if we say height, would be from top to bottom within the border. Because what we had by default, if you don't assign this, it will be content box, meaning that this would be 60. Let's say if this would be 600, then it will be only this 600 and everything else will be add on. But what I want to do is I want to say everything is 600, including the paddings. So then the content itself will be smaller. So if I refresh this, we should see something here, and it does not. So let me just check here. Alright, so I just noticed also a tiny mistake on my side here. If I scroll down here, I see here, I don't know how I get 160 here, but it should be 100. Which makes sense, of course. The full width is 100 and not 160 of the screen size, because then it is obviously beyond that part. So did the box sizing really work? Well, let me wonder. I wonder now if it work. We can just put this away and see how that does. Refresh. Apparently it will work as well, but I do recommend to use border box. Anyway, so now we have this. We can click this, and there we are. So now what I want to do here is on this pie chart, we need to start working on, and let's make it slightly bigger. Let's put it on 500. Refresh. Alright. Click. And then you can see if I refresh, what is happening is automatically it starts to trigger. So I'm going to say here height. Go here down. Let's search for it and give this model here a height class. Save that. Refresh. So there you are. It doesn't show at all. So what we need to do now is basically to trigger it. So how are we going to trigger this one? Well, basically, this here is a toggle. What that really means is just only one thing. If I do here a function, I say model open, you will see it will work immediately because it's a toggle. That's the functionality of it. So if I would say here, for example, I'm going to put in here a button. Let's grab that. Put it in here, and then we say here model open, and then we just say here open, and I said model open, sorry, model open. That should be like that. Save that. Refresh. Click on it. There you are. Close it. There you are. So now we have our model, but of course I want this functionality built in our pie chart or pie segment. So what we're going to do now is this one, I'll just leave it for now. And here we're going to start doing something, and pay attention here. What we need to do here, first of all, this here needs to be cut out. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to just say here constant ctx. I'm going to grab that one here. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I need to get only the canvas itself and not the canvas plus everything. If you would say my chart, it would be the canvas plus drawing everything. But now I don't want, because what I really want to do here is the following. First of all, we need to make sure that when we click on the items here, or when we click here, that the canvas or the website understands that we click just on a canvas. That's the canvas item. So that's number one. So what we're going to do here is basically very simple. We're going to create here a simple click handler. So I'm going to say a new function, and this will be our click handler. And this handler will be triggered on click, which is very obvious. And then here I'm going to say first of all console log I clicked. Alright, so to do this, I want to make sure that this communication is being created, because now we have this reference to the canvas, but it must now understand that when we click on it, we should do something here, because right now it doesn't do anything. So it cannot figure out what we're doing. So I'm going to say here is the following, ctx.onClick. So that will mean if we click on ctx, which is basically canvas, at that moment we trigger a functionality, and this functionality is called a click handler. And click handler basically means a item that does a specific task once clicked. Very simple, nothing fancy, which is just a machine, almost like a machine work. So if I click on this, look at that. Even if I click, but here's the problem, if I click here outside, it will also trigger. So what I need to do now is, now we understand the click on the item, but how can we figure out the official coordinates of this? So luckily for that, we don't have to go far, because Chartjs has a built-in functionality for that. So what we're going to do now is, the next part is starting to create the, or starting to analyze when we click on something. So I'm going to say a constant, and let's say a points. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the my chart, which is basically this here. And then I'm going to say a dot. And this is a special functionality built into Chart.js. Get elements at event for mode. Pay attention to the capitalized letters. Capitalize E, E here, A, again E for event, and then for, and then mode. Alright, so what this really does is, we're going to do something, or we want to do something when we click on a certain element. So basically when we click on an element, we want to create an event or do something here. So in this case, what we want to do, or what is the trigger of this? Well, that's click. And this is not even officially click, because this is just a parameter, but it's basically this here. This is what he says this is a click, and that click is being transferred here. If you would do a console log on click, you would even recognize that as well. We could even do it like this. You could see what it will look like. However, or let me just show you that. That will make even sense. If I save that, refresh, click, you can see what is happening. It recognizes the click, even recognizes the coordinates that we have, where we are clicking on. And this is very important, because basically this here helps us to calculate whatever we need to do. So we have the pixel coordinates when we click within the coordinates of this shape. Alright, so now you have that, you understand that part. Let's continue on with this functionality. So now what I want to say here, when will this click be triggered is on the nearest, meaning when I am near this item, it should grab or understand that we are very near to which segment we are, the red one, the blue one, or any other color. That's number one, nearest. But then we're going to put another condition. Then we're going to say here, intersect. And intersect is just like intersection, like a crossroad. That will mean we intersect. So what is intersect? If you see the tooltip, the moment the tooltip is triggered is basically on intersect. Intersect would be when we cross with our mouse point on that item. So you can see here, and if I go up again and a little bit down, immediately it triggers, and that's what I want. So when I intersect, but not on hover, but on click, if I click anywhere, even on that border here, as long as it is within this red shape, it should grab, or it should trigger it. If it's outside of it, on the white shape, it should not trigger at all. So that's very important. So that's what we're doing here. And then we say true again, and that's it. Alright, so once we have this, what I want to do here now is to say your console log and say points, which is basically our constant here, just to see what we get. So now, save that, refresh, open up the console log, click here. You can see here now, what happens is it recognizes a lot of items here. It recognizes the coordinates, it recognizes everything what we need to know, including the index and the data set index. This is very useful if you have multiple data sets. We can later on use this precious information. However, if I click on the white stuff, or on the white space, you can see no array found, or no value even found. So this is very important. So if I click on here, we'll go down here and it will show us whatever we find here. Index, elements. I have no idea if it shows you the values. Does it? No, not at this moment, but that's alright. Doesn't matter. We get here the index 4 and the data set index as well. Alright, so now we have the most important information. Now what I want to do is basically, with this information, I want to grab here specifically the data set index. So I'm going to say here points, and then what we have to do is points 0, because you can see only when there's an array. So if I save this and refresh, do again, Now it shows, but if I click on the white space, it shows undefined. All right. So that would mean now we can create an if statement. And this if statement will say if points has an array value, in that case, I want to do something. So we can remove that there. Then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say here, constant data set will be the points and then dot what exactly. Let's grab here because what I want to do is get this one here, the data set. That's number one. Secondly, what I want to do is of course the index. So I say a constant index, or maybe you can say a data point. I like to use data point more than index because index is a too general term. So I'm going to say here points 0 dot index. All right, so now we have this one here, and we have now all this very useful information. What I want to do now is the following. Well, what we can do here, first of all, console log data set. Save that, refresh. Click, you can see here, always 0 because we only have one data set. If I say here, data point, it should show us this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and as you can see, it starts to show everything. Beautiful. Now we have this working. Now it's time to start getting the values what I want. And what I want to do now is when we click on the item, I want to grab here the label that is matching. How do we get there? From the datas, then labels. Very simple. And of course, we have our data point here. So what I'm going to do here now is just the following. I'm going to say here data.labels and then dot, or no, not dot, I want to say here the index of whatever the data point is that we clicked on. Save that, refresh. Click, click, click. There we are. So now we have this. And what I want to do now is start to combine the functionality together. So remember we had this one here, and all I want to do now is just want to copy this and basically put that in here as well. So I'm going to put that in there and then save that. If I refresh here now and I click on that, there we are. Close. There we are. Close. If I click on this one, of course, oh, this one's not anymore activated. That's all right. You can see here we have that. Click, close, click, close. Of course, you can see here we're still not done. We get here Monday, but I just clicked on Thursday. So we need to combine this data. And I'm going to remove this open button. Now we don't need this open button anymore. You can see here, where's the open button? There we are. Delete that. Save. Refresh. Click. All right. So that works. Now, how do we get this value in there? Scroll down here. And then what I want to do here is we have this item here. And remember, if I go up here, we had the labels here. So now, all we need to do is to get these label classes and just say replace with new inner text. Or we can even remove this because there should be nothing shown until we click on something. So in here, I'm going to say here the following. I'm going to call this labels. This is the label span, so this should be a constant. So I say constant labels equals, then I'm going to use here a specific option. It's called the document dot query selector all. All right, so what's the difference, or what is query selector all? Query selector all, and watch out here, I'm typing here select, should be selector. Query means search, and then selector means looking for the element or the syntax here. In this case, it will be the syntax of span, or specifically the class of label. So you say, but I want not only one, I want every one of them that are in there. So I say query selector all, which is a string value, so I then get this one. So once we do this, it will realize, if we do a console log with the label, that there are two specific span here, or node list. So you can see it. It looks like an array, but it's not an array. So it's basically a node list, which is a bit more advanced because it contains every item in there with all the adjustments, whatever needed. So all the information is in here. So it's not an array, but it's a node list. However, you can almost treat it like an array because it's quite similar in the working of it. So what I want to do now is to change the text here, whatever we selected. So how do we do this? Because you can see here, we have two items. That's why we have the selector all. So all I need to do here now, because this is then, you can already figure out, this is like an array. So I'm going to say here, labels dot. And then what we're going to do here is just a for each item, or for each loop, for each label, which would be basically, in this case, every individual span label class. In that case, I want to say here the following. I want to do the following. I will say here label dot inner text will be equal to what? Well, it will be equal to our data that we have here. Hold on, where is it? This one here. The data point, or this is the label text here. All right, so once I do this, and then I will save, then refresh. And now if I click on purple, we see Friday, which is correct because it is Friday. Let's close that. Let's do this now on Monday, and there we are on Monday. And finally, let's click here Tuesday, and there we are on Tuesday. And this is basically how you can create a model and connect them nicely together. So if you enjoyed this video, and maybe you want, for example, not even a model, you want maybe a link, in that case, I have a nice other video here about how to create a clickable pie donut chart with links in Chart.js, which is also very similar to what we did here, and it's also a very interesting item to do.